Is it possible for teachers to work only their contract hours? I'm going to argue that it is possible. By the end of this episode, you will have practical tips to stay within your contract hours as a teacher so you can have a richer life. Hi, I'm Sean Morgan, host of the Teacher Money Show, full-time educator and money nerd who is building wealth on a teacher's salary. If I can do it, so can you. So if you're a teacher looking for the financial confidence to reach your money goals and live a richer life, you are in the right place. If you like what you hear today, please remember to subscribe and share it with your teacher friends. Now let's get started. Now, if you are new, then this is normal. But if you are a veteran, old-timer, you might be like, well, that was different. I'm trying something new. This season's going to be a little different than it's been in the past. I've got a new intro, a new way of running my podcast. I'm hoping that it'll bring some spirit to it. It'll bring it more alive. And I'm hoping that it'll allow me to continue doing this for the long term. One of the big changes that I'm going to make is I'm not going to stick to a weekly podcasting schedule. I'm going to promise you 2 times a month. If I do not meet that promise, I want you to send me an angry email telling me you didn't meet your promise, because I do want to continue to put out content. As I have gotten into a higher level of responsibility at school, and as I've got a family that is growing again, it's been growing, and we're going to keep growing. It's just made it really difficult for me to continue doing this at the pace that I've been doing it. So I've decided to take a small step back to be able to continue putting out content for you about teacher money, so that way we can keep having this great conversation without burning myself out. I hope that you appreciate that and understand it and continue to listen, even though it will not be coming on a weekly basis. All you have to do is just tell your podcast player to download it and put it in your playlist as soon as it comes, and you will always get the content every single time. That being said, you are not here to hear me tell you about some housekeeping things. You are here to hear all about this idea of, can we stay in our contract hours? And I chose this topic, even though I've talked about it many times before, because it is so important as we are at the beginning of the school year, to set up the routines now, to set up the mindset now, so that way you can avoid going outside those contract hours. Is it always possible? I'm not going to tell you that I was perfect at this. In fact, I probably spent an extra hour a day outside of my contract hours every day when I was in person. I try not to do any hours outside of my contract hours now, but being online is a little bit of a different animal. But in person, I'd show up about 30 minutes earlier than my contract and leave 30 minutes later. The main reason for that is because I wouldn't feel prepared unless I had shown up a little early. Our contract hours started 15 or 20 minutes before the school day began, and that just didn't feel like I could be present for my students. And then I had to just kind of clean up things before I left at the end of the day. But that being said, it still was a lot smaller than a lot of teachers who, I'm sure that you've been that teacher or know those teachers who stay 2, 3, 4 hours after the bell rings, after they should be going home. And my 12th grade English teacher told me that she was at the school at midnight the previous night reading Shakespeare into the courtyard. I don't think that's you. Maybe it is you, but that is a little too much, right? So we need to bring our time into our contract hours, because our work is for when we're at work, and then we can live our life outside of work. That's what's going to give us a richer life, and that is the whole goal, a richer life. That is what we want. So what I'm going to do is just share with you 5 practical tips. If you have a practical tip that you would like to share with me, you can send me an email at Sean, SHAUN, at teachermoneyshow.com. You can send me an email anytime, and I'd love to hear some more tips. If I hear from you, I'm going to share these things on the podcast. I love getting your input and your feedback. But here are my 5 things that I did to drastically reduce my time outside of contract hours, so that way I could focus on work when I'm at work, and then focus on my family and the things that I like to do outside of work when I am not at work. The first thing that I did is I reevaluated the way I grade. If we are grading everything so intensely, especially papers, that we just feel like we have to, spend hours and hours and hours every day doing it, and we don't have that time during the school day, that is going to suck a lot of our time. I had a teacher, one of my favorite teachers, one of my best teachers, who would spend the entire evening after giving a test grading all of our tests to return them, so that way we'd get that feedback immediately, which I did appreciate as a student. And of course, tests were 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a semester. But that being said, I think that if you're going to be spending that much time outside of school, it's taking you away from your family. And some teachers spend that much time multiple times in the semester, multiple times a week even. We want to avoid that. So what can we do to reduce our grading time? Well, first of all, you can just ask, what is taking so much time when I'm grading? And that's where you begin. You just say, okay, this is what's taking a lot of time. How can I reduce that load? For me, I was like organizing all the papers so that way I could file them. And I'm like, well, this seems like a ridiculous thing to have to do, but I had all these papers and I didn't want to lose them if I needed to, bring them up as evidence for scholar learning or whatever. So I was organizing them so I could grade them and easily put them into my grade book. Well, what I decided to do instead is I put them all in binders. And every student had a binder, and they'd bring it to me, and the binders were just easier to organize, and I could grade multiple things all at once when they brought me the binders. So that was one thing. I graded less often when I had the binders. I graded every 2 weeks. That was it. Now, is this the best way to give feedback? No. So let's be honest, that wasn't great teaching pedagogy. But if I'm giving immediate feedback to my students when I am with them, that is more important than getting a couple of points on something that they turned in. The points were just a way to keep track of how they were doing, but the immediate feedback does need to happen when you are giving it to them. If you feel like you must give, the on the paper pointed feedback, then I would say take the next step, which is do it less. Have them turn things in less. Now you might be like, whoa, I can't do that. How am I supposed to? No. You don't have to grade everything. In fact, it is probably better for them that not everything is graded and that some things are just like, hey, let's fix this. Let's work on that together. Instead of grading it all, you just give pointed feedback while you're walking around the class, while you're looking at them, seeing how they're doing. That formative, observational feedback, super impactful. That's what I would recommend doing more than giving points. Points mean almost nothing to a student when they see it on their page. It's like, okay, I failed or didn't. There's nothing special about that for them. The actual, this is what you can do to improve your learning, that is the key. So finding ways to do that in real time is where the learning is really going to happen. Something else that I did is peer grading. I'd have 2 scholars look at the assignments together, and they would swap the papers, and then we'd go through the criteria together. We'd have a rubric, and they'd look at the rubric, and they'd use the rubric to evaluate the work. And if you teach them to use the rubric, they can do the grading for you on these formative things, and then you're doing the grading mostly on those more summative assessments. It's a fantastic tool. And then just chunking it into smaller pieces. I think I already said this, but I want to specifically bring this up for those larger things, like an essay. You're like, oh, I have to take home these essays. I got to read all of the essays and I have to mark it all up. Please don't do that. Maybe a final essay you give, all this feedback on. But if you give 16 million things for a student to fix on an essay, they're going to shut down. They're not going to want to do anything. If you look at an essay and you say, well, you did this mistake 3 times, here's how to fix it, read through your whole essay looking for that mistake, and then turn it back in. Much more powerful. Or another way to say, okay, everyone turn in your introduction paragraph. Then you're only looking at one paragraph. Everyone turn in the first body paragraph, etc. And just do it in pieces. And then at the end, all you're doing is just kind of compiling it and like looking over it, like, oh, this is how they've been doing the whole time. They made some changes, like, okay, they are in this bucket of how well they did. They're in that bucket. And when I say bucket, I mean you don't have a complex, 4, 5, 6 tier with 6, different ranges rubric where you have to decide, are they here or there? Simplify it, right? Did they meet the criteria or not? Did they meet the criteria or not? And just do like 4, 5, 6. I know there are 6 like elements of good writing. If you just do 6 elements of good writing, met it or not, or exceeded, proficient, not, you can really reduce it. I personally, when I'm grading writing, have a single line 4-point rubric. I put everything into each box and I just say, did you get all the way to the 4? Did you get to the 3? Did you get to the 2 or the 1 or the 0, which means they just didn't turn it in. But then I tell them specifically what they need to improve, because that's more important. What can you improve? Do this to improve. This doesn't just apply to essays. You're looking at math, you can go through and say you missed a point here, 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 here. But look for patterns, look for a trend and say, this is what you are struggling on. Here's a resource to help you improve this mathematical skill. Look at a science report, like a lab report. Okay, this is where you're struggling. Do this part and then turn it back in. Instead of having to do the whole thing and tearing it apart, you can just say, okay, I've noticed this pattern. That means that I'm not going to look at the rest of it. Even if the rest of it's beautiful, you got to fix this first because you didn't meet the criteria. There's just a lot of things we can do to reduce that, to give more pointed feedback, and it actually helps your students learn better with taking less time. I think I've bagged on this long enough, but the point is, find ways to reduce your grading. If you don't like my suggestions, you're like, Sean's crazy, his grading theory is all messed up. I don't care if you agree with my grading theory. I'm just telling you what I've done that has significantly dropped the amount of time I spend grading over the years, and you can find your own way that works for you. Okay, suggestion number 2, the clickbaity suggestion: use AI to speed up your planning. Now, I know use AI is just like the thing everyone is saying right now, but seriously, if you are not using AI in your classroom, why? It is the biggest time saver in the history of teaching. You've got to get on this train. 2 resources that I use are Brisk. Just like take a brisk walk is what it's called. And they can say, go brisket, which sounds good because it sounds yummy, brisket. But that's a tool that it will read through an essay and then tell you how it would score it based on the rubric that you upload. It's insane. And there's so many things that it can do. I had Brisket create a tool where it would look at an essay that got turned in and then it would say, hey, here's something that you should improve on. Or it would say hey, do you see something to improve in the first paragraph? Here's a hint. And then the student can read through it again, oh, should I fix this? It's oh yeah, that's better, right? And it talked back and forth with them about their writing to help them improve, which is pretty cool. Lots of great things with Brisk. I obviously do a lot of writing, so that's where that is, but Brisk is just a general AI tool that can look at and help you come alongside you with your grading, especially if you use Google Docs. It will read through the stuff and use your criteria to grade those for you. Really, really interesting. And then there's also Magic School, which is just a whole suite of AI tools where it will come up with rubrics, it'll come up with essential questions, it'll develop lessons for you, it will differentiate the lesson for you, all sorts of things. Side note, differentiation does not mean writing a different lesson for every single child. It just means when a child needs help, you help them, and when they are excelling, you give them more. That's what differentiation is. It's a pet peeve of mine. You do not need to write a new lesson for everyone, but if you're oh, this child is struggling on this issue, how can I help them? It can give you the scaffolding to get them where they need to be. That's what it should be doing, not being oh, here's a different lesson for this kid. None of that. Side note, back to off of my soapbox. So AI tools and just generally ChatGPT. You have an angry parent email, don't sit there being oh no, what do? You just take that email, you say, I need to respond, this is kind of what I want to say, can you write it in a pleasant tone? And it'll write it for you. There are things that we can do to just speed up the process all the way. Now, I don't expect everyone to do this, but I've mentioned this before. I'm using it to write simple codes that will speed up processes for me. I have to do a lot of grade input and data, stuff like that, into Canvas, which is what we use for our grading. If you need to do a repetitive task, ask AI, what can I do to speed up this repetitive task? And it will tell you if there is a way to speed it up, how to do it. So just finding ways to be okay, I need to do it. It might take 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever, to go through the process of learning it the first time or setting up the system. But then if that takes a 30-minute task and takes it down to 10 minutes, how many times do you have to do a 30-minute task? That's only 10 minutes now to get your time back. Not very many, right? That 20 minutes saved is just going to, chunk that along a lot faster. So it's just a powerful tool to put systems in place that will allow you to speed things up. And I guess I haven't really talked a ton about planning yet, but like if you have like, you want to build a scope and sequence, you want to know how to lay out your unit, you want to begin with the end in mind, right? You're going to do it backwards design. You can do all of that using AI as a thought partner. Don't let it just write it for you, but like say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is kind of where I'm at. Can you give me an outline? And then you tweak it and you say, here's my tweaks, and it'll like, redo it. Like you can go back and forth as a thought partner with AI to go a lot faster and frankly, probably better in what you come up with than flying by the seat of your pants because, it's that kind of a day. Okay, number 3, do more review. I'm serious. Stop teaching something new. You're not going to teach it all anyway. Even with the big rock standards and then like the medium and then the small, like, even if you do big, medium, and small, you're not going to get to all the small or most of the small. There's going to be so many insignificant ones you're not even going to touch. And they are going to forget it. When you are teaching so many things and then they cram it all for the test, they will forget it the next week. It's not helping them. So just spend more time reviewing. You don't have to plan as much when you're just going to review again and again and again. Now, change it up, do different review things. Please don't make everything multiple choice questions, but just, ask them. Do popcorn, like, hey, what do you think about this? What about that? Hey, where does this play into what they just said? Come up here and do this on the board. Like, we're just going to practice these skills again and again and again. You could have a day a week where you are only reviewing every single week. And if you do that every single week, you're going to help them learn better. You're going to have to plan less. It's going to be a less stressful day if you're just like, oh yeah, we're just going to do this kind of review. And, here are the things that I've taught, put it into an AI thing and, give me some questions, give me some multiple choice, give me some, open-ended answer, give me some, critical thinking, whatever you want. And it can generate a bunch of questions for you. You sort them out like a yes, no, yes, 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 no, yes, no, whether I want this one, I don't want that one, so forth. Bam, you're done. Move on. This is going to help them learn, and it is going to speed up your time. You don't have to spend that day worrying so much about the next day. You can just say, I'm going to do this, my prep time to plan really well, like, etc. That is the thing that you are wanting to do. Get your time back and teach students better. And that's what this will do. So please do more review. Spend more time reviewing so that way your students will know it. They'll be able to engage with it. They'll have that spiral going on. And it's not just like, oh, we're going to do like a quick 5-minute thing. Then we got to teach something new. Spend a lot of time reviewing, and it's going to make them better. It's going to make your time less stretched. All right. This is my favorite one. Number 4. Say no. I know this is going to be painful because they're always coming and say, hey, will you be on this committee? Hey, will you volunteer after school? Hey, will you come to this thing? Whatever. No. And if they say, oh, we need you to do this, like, then pay me. It's not in my contract that I have to do that. So no. The problem that we are experiencing is teachers are volunteering for things that are not paid. And so much is happening in schools on the backs of unpaid labor. Okay, unpaid labor is a fancy way of saying slavery. I know, I'm sorry, this is a very touchy subject. But if they are just saying, you have to do this, that is compulsory work. But if you can say no and take that power back, you are not enslaved. If you say, you know what, I feel like doing this, I like to do this, this is a rest for me, this is part of my richer life, by all means volunteer. But volunteer in the same way that you would volunteer at a soup kitchen. Not because it's a job obligation, but because you are a good person and you feel like doing that thing once. But keep in mind that it is not required in your job to do all the things that they told you that you're on this committee now. No, I'm not. I can't do this. I don't have the time. Right? You need to come to this after school activity. It's not my contract hours. I'm not going to be there. And I have a friend who does this, and she is an amazing teacher. So amazing that when she was a long-term sub, they asked her to stay instead of bringing the other teacher back. Not going to open that wound. And they know she's so good that when she says no, they go, you're really good at teaching. So just be good. Be so good they can't ignore you. It is a great line from Ender's Game. But be so good they can't ignore you is what we're talking about here. So that way you can just say no. And if you're like, but I can't say no because what if I lose my job? Okay, they are desperate for teachers. If they aren't desperate for teachers in your district, then wow, what a blessing for your district. But they're not going to fire you unless you are breaching contract. And if they try to fire you for saying no, you can say, it's not in my contract. I'm not required to do that. And you get legal involved, you're going to win. Okay, that's just totally a wrongful termination suit. I'm not a lawyer. Please, don't sue me if you try it and that you get fired. But if your union lawyer can't win that case, they're not a very good lawyer. Okay, because it's not in your contract. If it is, then you've got to do it. But then they should be compensating you for it. Okay, I've been on a lot of soapboxes today, but the point is, say no. Say it as much as you can. If you don't need to do it to keep your job, and it's not within your contract hours, say no. That is going to free up so much of your time. Say no. Okay, number 5. This is important. Commit to leave at the end of the day. That means that if you say, I'm not ready for tomorrow, there's no plan, I haven't graded everything, I don't know what their scores are, I'm not sure what's happening, you leave anyway. You leave all of the grading at the school. You leave your school-issued computer there, you don't open it up to plan, you don't check your parent emails, you do nothing. You leave. And then you come back first thing tomorrow, and you whip something together for the day. Like a review. Reviewing is a fantastic way to fill the time because it's actually useful, right? That's what you can do. Make that your go-to when you aren't ready because, once again, it's extremely useful for their education. But you leave. You don't say, well, I have to stay because X, Y, and Z. You don't have to stay. You are incredible. You can do your job just by going for it because that's what makes teachers awesome. Your ability to just kind of be flexible, roll with the punches, figure it out. Because once again, you do not need to teach something new every single day. You do not need to be cramming more content down their throats. What could you do besides reviewing? Read a book. Find a book in your subject and just get up there and start reading it. Perform a book for your students. Whether that's a fiction book in an English class or an interesting text about mathematics or even a fictional book about mathematics. There's a great one called Flatland where a shape that's two-dimensional engages with the three-dimensional world and freaks out. And then there is, in science you can read about the adventures of a great scientist. Like, how interesting would it be to read about the exploration of Darwin in the Galapagos Islands and really, talking about the scientific process as he goes through that, etc. I don't know what is best for your class, but the point I'm making is it takes very little preparation to do some very interesting things that are within your discipline that will help your students to understand it better, to connect with it better, to learn better, that don't require you staying 2-3 hours after school to prepare. So commit to leave at the end of the day because you've reevaluated the way that you grade, you're using AI to speed up your planning, you're doing more review, you're saying no, so you can just walk away guilt-free at the end of the day. That is what I want you to do. Your homework is to stop working beyond your contract hours. They aren't paying you for it, and as a result, you will have a richer life. And that's what we're here for, to gain a richer life. No matter how you approach this, whether you use my 5 steps or you add more, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, and you are able to stop working those contract hours, remember that as a teacher, you are already rich. Your wallet just needs to catch up. If you're a teacher who loves teaching, but aren't sure if you can reach your financial goals, I've created a free worksheet called The Teacher's Roadmap to Financial Confidence. Go to teachermoneyshow.com/roadmap to get your copy. That's teachermoneyshow.com/roadmap. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.